Armada Book 5 Chapter 2, The Phantom Tide Part 2. Tony beamed them to Andy's office and they walked out of the office room. It was late morning and the restaurant had just opened for the day. Andy saw them moving out of the office. He waved them over. "Mr. Reek, Debbie, good to see you again." Andy greeted them. "Hello Andy, where's Rita?" Reek asked. "She's out shopping, mate." "So who are these guys?" Debbie stepped forward. "Andy, this is Arlene, Jamie and Mrs. Anna Gomez, Arlene's mom." "Wait, you're the movie star. You are prettier in person than in the movie and TV series." "Thank you, Andy." Andy showed them to a table near the entrance. "What time is it?" "It looks like late morning." Arlene said. "Yes, we're in Sydney." Debbie said. Anna and Arlene looked at each other. "Andy here serves the best steak in the galaxies. And no Andy, we will pay you or we leave." Reek said. "Fine Reek, have you gone to the Maccabee Galaxies? Don't tell me you'll open a restaurant there as well?" Debbie asked. "I like their place, so advanced. But they are mostly vegetarians and prefer this bird more than any red meat. I don't think we should open a restaurant in any of their thousands of planets. And besides, they are just too far. But if your reference point is Earth, they have almost the same distance as the Talonauts." Reek said. "Yes, you're right. Wait, what's this new division the news are harping about? Your son-in-law made a real big deal about it. Phantom Tide. Anna and her daughter Arlene are in the group. What is it that you do?" Andy asked, looking at Anna and Arlene. Jamie took the task of answering. "We let people talk to ghosts, we help ghosts move on, we do some investigations and a lot of social service for the dead." "You can talk to ghost Mrs. Gomez?" "She sure does. We just came from her office and we took care of several ghost cases, a few were immediately resolved." Reek said. "Fascinating." Andy said. "It is. Absolutely. I have learned a lot today." Jamie said. "It was amazing how some of their problems can touch you very deeply." Debbie added. "That is part of what I try to teach Arlene. To detach herself from her cases to be able to do her job well." "Mom, there's a ghost soldier behind that lady. Why don't we invite him over to eat?" Reek asked. "You can do that?" Andy asked. "Once we make the food crimson invisible, the food will be in the same reality as the ghost and he can eat them." Debbie explained. Jamie stood. "Come on Andy, let's go to your office so we can be crimson invisible, then we approach the soldier and invite him to eat." Andy nodded. He stood and they went over to the office. They went out crimson invisible already and now Andy can see the soldier about 3 feet away from the older lady. Andy looked at his tri-camouflage uniform, no markings, maybe special forces he thought. He did not seem to be armed. He looked well built, tall, maybe around 6'2", not at all young, at early 30s. "Hello mate, I'm Andy. This is Jamie." The soldier, surprised, looked at him and said, "I know who you are, I have been coming over since I was a kid. I'm Aldrin, Captain Aldrin Simons. How is it you can see me and I can see you?" "It's a long story. May we invite you to our table?" Jamie asked. "Come on mate, the steak's on me." Andy held his shoulder and gave him his usual buddy smile. Jamie told Debbie to pull over a chair for Aldrin. Aldrin sat stiff and quiet. "What would you like?" Andy asked. Aldrin kept quiet. "Well?" Andy was waiting. "I'll have number 2 medium rare." Andy tapped his shoulders and walked over to the office. When he and Jamie came out they were now normal. Andy walked over to tell a waitress to bring over a number 2 medium rare to Anna's table. Jamie ordered herself 3 filet mignons with baked potatoes and carrots on the side. "Aldrin, this is Mr. Reek, Debbie, and my daughter Arlene," Anna said. Andy sat at the right of Aldrin while Jamie sat on Aldrin's left. "So you can all see me?" Aldrin asked. "No, just me and Mom can see you. They can see you if they turn invisible like you." She pointed to the others in the table. "But they can all hear you," Arlene said. "So do you like to tell us about yourself, Aldrin?" Anna asked. Aldrin did not know how to react. After a while Anna told him to start how he died. "Well, ma'am, I was killed in the war together with all my Delta team members, maybe 5 years ago. We are in a helicopter transport headed behind enemy lines when a missile hit aft port and the whole transport was obliterated. All of my team members are now ghosts." "Where are all your team members now?" Anna asked. "In all probability all of us are with our families. Hanging around." A waitress came over and started giving their steak orders around. She put 3 bottles of wine and a bottle of beer for Reek. Andy told the waitress to put the number 2 in front of him. When the waitress left, he moved the food to his left. Tony started to report to Reek and the group about Aldrin's team from military files. "Would you like a beer or wine with your steak, Aldrin?" Reek, sitting across him, asked. Tony continued on with the report. Tony started the report about the group, then about Aldrin, then about the group commander, then about the men. I would prefer this red wine, thank you. He tried to hold the wine and his hand went right through. Wait, let me make your food invisible first. Anna said. The Crimson made the bottle of wine, wine glass, and steak invisible together with the set of knife and fork. Aldrin started to eat. Can you pass the steak sauce, please? Anna got the steak sauce and she asked the Crimson to make it invisible. Aldrin carefully held the knife and fork. He put the knife down and got the steak sauce. He opened it and put some sauce on his steak. He held the wine bottle, opened it and put some in his glass. Anna and Arlene were watching him. Aldrin looked at Anna. Here goes. He sliced a piece and put it in his mouth. This is incredible. The steak is still so incredible. It tastes even better than when I was alive more than 5 years ago. Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Andy. Andy could not see him but he heard him. You're welcome, Aldrin. This steak is incredible. I have never tasted steak as good as this. Andy, you're the best. Anna said. I told you, he's the best across the galaxies. And may I say that the steak you are eating comes from the Bofang's planet more than 8 BLY away. Debbie said. Is it so ironic that all my steaks come from that far? I recognize this bottle, it comes from the Bofang's also. Reek said and Andy gave the thumbs up. Aldrin was just listening, preferring to concentrate on eating. You and your team have been ghosts for 5 years? Arlene asked. Aldrin nodded. He was chewing and did not want to be rude. None of you have moved on? Anna asked. None of us. I think I understand after talking to a lot of ghosts that once you resolve that which keeps you from moving on, you disappear into the light. Well, the way we figure is that it's our sense of duty that keeps us. I have no issues with my family or with whatever there is in my life. Whenever we go out we are prepared to die, so we had to settle anything there is to settle before we go out on missions. I believe that we would move on once we fulfill our sense of duty. How can you do that if you're ghosts? You cannot possibly fight in a war as ghosts. How many are in your team? Arlene asked. Excluding the 2 Hello pilots, 24 men. Are you sure that is what you and your team feel that you need to move on? To fulfill your sense of duty? Debbie asked. That feeling may be different among each of us to some degree. Let me explain something. We were flying on a mission where the chance of survival is almost nil. We firmly believe that we had to fulfill our mission at all cost. We have prepared ourselves to die so we can fulfill our mission. Then that missile screwed up everything for us. I believe we can help you and your team members to get that feeling of successfully doing a mission. Debbie, you're in charge of this case. Bring them over to the Armada and throw them into the front lines. Reek said. Can you gather your team members and go over to my house? Here's the address. Anna said and produced a calling card and laid it on the table in front of Aldrin. Debbie instructed the Crimson to make the card invisible. Aldrin looked at the card and put it in his front shirt pocket. It will take a while, maybe a week or 2 before we are all complete and head over to your house. Never mind Anna, I will take care of him after dinner, I mean lunch. I think I can collect all his members in a few hours. Debbie said. You guys are incredible. This is incredible. Andy said. Your steak is incredible, Andy. Arlene countered. This is actually better than before. The meat is softer and tastier. And the wine is better. Andy, you really did it. Aldrin said. Andy gave the thumbs up like he usually does. They noticed a group of 6 old-timers walked into the restaurant and waved to Andy. Andy walked over to them and directed them towards one of the function rooms. Then Andy walked back to Reek's table. I gather that they are your recruiting team? Reek asked. Yes, we had to plan out the thrust for next month. We wanted to double our quota. Quota for what? Anna asked. Reek started. Andy is head of the recruitment teams in Sydney. He basically recruits old-timers. He starts with those critical almost dying ones, then goes down the line starting with the oldest. You recruit dying people? Arlene asked. Yes, but we make them well. Did Reek tell you guys about the TPs already? Anyway, after the medical teams finish with them they become younger and stronger. Then we assign them to where they want to work on. Off-world, of course. My dad is in a convalescent home. Can you help him? Anna asked. That would be Christie's turf. Just tell your AI to contact Christie so she can work on your dad. I would suggest you bring him home with you before you let Christie work on your dad. All our work is secret, as you probably understand by now, and we do not want to alert anybody else. Tony told Anna he found his dad and suggests to move him out as soon as possible. My dad just had a heart attack and his prognosis is not well. Can you do something about him? Aldrin asked. Tony told Andy through his implant that he found his dad. He is in his room in his house. Sure. I will work on it right away. Andy. So he will become well and live a few years longer? Aldrin asked. Several hundred years longer. He is now sleeping in his room at your house. My team will work on him tonight. Andy said. That's incredible. Aldrin exclaimed. Hey, you're dead, mate, and I am talking to you. Is that not incredible already? So while running a restaurant you run a secret old-timer recruiting operation, that is incredible. Anna commented. Welcome to the club, Anna. You're now in the same boat as we are. Andy said. Reek was quiet since he was listening to team reports. Debbie was quiet talking to Tony about locating all of Aldrin's team members. Jamie was also quiet listening to her movie directors and writers meeting in Planet Los Angeles. Arlene was quietly listening to Reek, Jamie, and Debbie. She sees them eating quietly while working in their heads. Even Andy was listening to the meeting of the old-timers in the room. Anna looked at Arlene. Times have changed, mother. Arlene said. Anna nodded. Aldrin, can I just thank you for the work you do? Sure, Anna, if you let me thank you for the work you do. Aldrin said, and Anna smiled. After an hour they were ready to go. Reek paid the waitress and Andy started embracing the girls. They walked over to his office and became crimson invisible. I will take Aldrin to the ship and get hold of his team. Then we will go to Planet Los Angeles and talk to the Armada. Debbie said. Can I come with you, Debbie? Arlene said and looked at her mom. Anna nodded. Sure, you'd be a lot of help. Debbie said. I will go with Anna back to her house so we can talk a bit more. Reek said. I will go with you, Reek. Jamie said. Okay, see you guys later. Reek said, smiled, and the group disappeared. At the bridge of the Tesla. Debbie sat on the captain's chair. Arlene stood beside her while Aldrin stood in front, his back towards the railing. She asked Tony to appear before them. Aldrin, this is Tony, he is the ship AI. Tony, found all your team members. Aldrin nodded and stayed quiet. Yes, they have all been tagged. Do you want me to beam them all up? Wait, where is Colonel Castro? Debbie asked. You mean General Roger Castro? He is in his ship reading some reports. Can you ask him to come over, please? Roger appeared. Hi, Debbie, what's up? Sir, congratulations, I did not know you're a general now. The Maccabees told the president to promote me. Ellie was promoted as well. We have a situation in our line of work that I hope you can help us. I am sorry to bother you, but this is Captain Aldrin Simons. He's a ghost. Roger shook his hand. I read about your new outfit. It's incredible even to us. So how can I help? Debbie told him about Aldrin and their meeting at Andy's. Then she went on to explain the day at Anna's house and how the Crinsons and Trunties made her feel the ghosts. After 15 minutes of explaining, she looked at Tony and, Tony, please. All of Aldrin's team members appeared in the bridge behind the chair. They all looked slim and tall, wearing the same uniform as Aldrin, and all were quiet. Aldrin approached the group and, Colonel Riker, this is General Castro, Debbie, and Tony. Riker walked towards Roger. Roger, is that you? What the hell, you're dead too? Roger shook his hand. No, I'm not dead. Why don't we all go to the mission room so you can get comfortable and I will explain things for all of you. Debbie, please lead the way. Debbie led the group to the mission room, which was next to the bridge. Please have a seat. All the ghosts sat down. Can you beam some refreshments for our guests? Orange juice and a burger would do. Debbie told Tony telepathically. Roger stood at the middle of the room. Terry, can you introduce your men, please? Riker stood and introduced each of his men, who stood up and saluted to Roger. Please feel free to drink and eat. I'm General Roger Castro. I know you are from the Delta Special Forces. Terry and I go way back in our training days. No, we go back earlier, since high school. I know you were shot in a helo, and as ghosts you could not move on because your sense of mission keeps you from moving on. Dr. Reek is the head of a group called Phantom Tide that deals with ghosts such as yourselves to help you move on, settle things for you, and basically do the usual ghost social work. Debbie here is working with him. He then went on to explain how they are able to go into the ghost dimension. He explained that Reek and Debbie were Armada people. He then went on to explain Armada work to them and his intention to integrate them so they can engage the enemy in the front line to provide them the fulfillment they need so they can move on. It was a long explanation and Tony provided some visuals as he saw fit during Roger's discourse. The group was quiet. Riker stood. This is all incredible to us even as ghosts. What you just said? But heck, it's you, Roger, you have always been incredible to me. And the orange juice and burger taste so good after more than 5 years of not being able to eat. Not that we need to anyway. Of course we do not expect you to believe us right now. But we ask that you be patient, cooperate and understand things as we go along. Debbie said. Debbie, let's move on to my ship at Planet Los Angeles. I would like to tour them around and then we can have them meet Andrew and the gang. Debbie, good call. Thank you, sir. Debbie told Tony to make all the arrangements at Andrew's house. Then the group went to Roger's ship, they toured around and after 2 hours, they ended up in the mess hall. They were not particularly hungry so Roger beamed the group to Planet Los Angeles at Andrew's backyard. At Andrew's backyard, there was the usual lunch barbecue and the usual families were there. Julia's, Ellie's, and Andrew's. Edna, Maria, Lachine, Linda, and Eric were sitting in one table. Olive, Tom, and Brad were the ones doing the cooking. Debbie, Arlene, and Roger beamed in with Riker's men. Roger asked Andrew if they would like to be Crimson Invisible and Andrew agreed. When they were all Crimson Invisible, the group saw the ghosts. Andrew stood and let Roger introduce Arlene and the men. Riker took over the introduction after Roger introduced a few of them. Andrew, Timmy, Ellie, Linda, Ari, Julia, Danny and Lachine all shook their hands. Debbie went to Ari and hugged her. Just then Reek beamed in with Albert, Harold and Daisy. Another introduction and Albert was particularly livid as if the ghosts can still vote. Andrew directed the men to sit at the tables beside the grills. Olive beamed bottles of wine, whiskey and brandy to the table. Harold and the president made it a point to sit beside the men. Timmy sat with them too. Roger started, President Albert, Riker needs to have a new mission to accomplish so they can move on. The reason why they are ghosts is that they were not able to fulfill the mission they trained to do. As your host and before you say anything, Riker, tell your men to get a glass of wine or brandy or whiskey. Then refill again. This way you'd all be at ease. It seems to me you are all so tense. Andrew said. We really are in the presence of our Commander-in-Chief and Secretary of Defense on top of everything else we just saw. So you could say we are a bit tense. Riker said. Albert approached Roger. Here, give me some brandy, Roger. Roger did and Albert proposed a toast to the Delta Force heroes. Then Andrew proposed another toast to drink at least 10 shots. If you don't mind General Mann, General Rivers, FYI, the failed mission was to have been your backup. I am glad you made it out alive. Riker said. Andrew carried me back to our lines. Our friend died in the attack. Timmy said. First of all I would like to reassign you to Andrew's Armada under Roger here. You need some retraining to learn the Armada ways. Maybe a 2-week period would be sufficient. Harold? Albert said. Right, I am thinking of sending you off through the dimension gateway the Maccabees gave us. You know, like our field forward units. Gather intel and report back whether we should send teams in or not. Harold answered. This is really our first few forays into the unknown and the risk could be very high. But I feel you and your men can handle it well. Roger said. You can always depend on my team, Roger. Olive called out that the stakes were ready. Olive announced that the soldier ghosts would start the line. Riker was surprised but he stood up and told his men to form the line. Julie and Timmy moved from Albert and Riker's table to the ladies. Ari looked at Arlene. So you can actually see real ghosts? Yes, me and my mom. We've been doing this since I was like 4 years old. Can you go to my planet and look for my dead brother? Lachine asked. We are forming teams for the different human planets. Once we have our recruitment and field procedures in place, we can disseminate these for all our field units and assign them in different planets. Debbie explained. Recruit ghosts? Lachine asked. Live ones and ghosts to look for other ghosts and help in the work. I don't think you will have a hard time looking for those. It may be that you will never run out of ghosts to process because people keep on dying. Linda said. I like to help while we are on R&R. Ari said. Count me in. This work could be incredibly amazing. Lachine said. Just then Sonia and Gasimjan beamed in. Then they turned Crimson Invisible and saw the large crowd. Albert saw the two and quickly went over to meet them. Andrew was not far behind. Welcome Sonia, Gasimjan. Your official visit is 2 days from now. Albert said. Sonia embraced Albert and Andrew. Gasimjan shook Albert's and Andrew's hands. No, we came early to shop with Lachine and the girls. They walked towards the girls' table. Lachine ran to embrace her sister. Why are we Crimson Invisible, Lex? This is Arlene. She can see ghosts. Look at those men in uniform. Those are ghosts, you know, dead people. Lachine said. Hi Arlene. Did Lachine tell you about our dead brother? Yes she did and Debbie told her we are forming teams for other planets. Then we would recruit ghosts in the other planets to work on the ghosts there. You're recruiting ghosts to the Armada? Gasimjan asked. Albert interjected, I assigned those men to the Armada. They would be under Roger and I intend to deploy them in 2 weeks. Reek, Timmy and Andrew started to move to the food line. The girls stood and walked nearer. We would also recruit ghosts to help us process other ghosts so they can move on. All ghosts do not want to be ghost forever, they all want to move on. Debbie said. I think this is a very good idea Sonia to familiarize yourselves with our planet before your official arrival. Where is your official party? Julia asked. We left them at the Mac capital planet. We visited the Inkies first, then the Macs. Just then Junie and Sarudam beamed in. After looking around they turned crimson invisible. Hi Albert, Andrew. Are you ready to look at your investments? What investments are those? Sonia asked. Sarudam answered her, casinos. We have a city in Junie's planet and 2 planets in our galaxies. Actually their presence would be needed in inaugurating several more locations. I like to come over to your planets after our official visit to Earth. Come on Sonia, it could be a lot of fun. Gasamjo said. Sonia and Gasamjan have grown close to each other, cooperating on mostly similar issues with their planets. They made it a point to have monthly meetings with their leaders and at least one quiet lunch with each other. We can treat it as an official visit of planet leaders. Ali, you should come along with your staff. How about you Maria, Edna, are you coming along? Julia asked. We would be going there about that time you would be there. Edna said. Manpat would be very excited to receive your official parties. Sarudam said. You can visit my planet on your way back so my people can prepare. Junie said. Actually you should make time for the alien groups, you know, while you're in our area. Sarudam said. I don't think I could be out of the picture that long. Albert said. Debbie, Arlene, why don't you come with us shop? Don't worry about the money, spend like you own the world. On me. Edna said. I have to ask permission from Mr. Reek first. She ran over to Reek and after a while she was happy to go. So where do we go first? Debbie asked. I guess Tokyo first, then Hong Kong. Then we go to Singapore and Bangkok. Ari said. Arlene whispered, Debbie, it's 10 o'clock at night on Earth right now. Do you think we should go? They might end up 10 hours from now. We'll just shop for say 4 hours then we go home. We can do that? Is it okay with them? Yes, of course. The trick is to decide on what to buy quickly so you can buy a lot more in the short time we have. Anyway, they will probably shop again tomorrow and we could go with them again. Arlene looked at Debbie, wondering how she could know the future. Don't worry Arlene, this is how things work out, just go with the flow. Debbie told her. The next day, Arlene beamed home when her mother was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. She kissed her mom and told her she was out all night with Debbie and told her she was going straight to bed. Debbie reported for work right after lunch. Reek called her into Anna's room. Debbie, I would like you and Arlene to go to a museum in Dayton, Ohio. This is Lieutenant Julian Singer, he's an Air Force pilot who died in the Vietnam War. He came over on behalf of some of his friends. Reek told her. Arlene told me you had to go shopping again tonight. Anyway, it's Saturday tomorrow so I guess Arlene can go with you. She told me some incredible shopping stories about last night including hanging out with the president. If Mr. Reek did not confirm it, I wouldn't have believed it. Arlene entered the room and embraced Debbie. I wanted to see what you bought last night, Arlene said. Debbie just smiled. Anna repeated their assignment and, I want you guys to talk to the ghosts if you find any and bring them here tomorrow. Julian here will help in any way you like. A Mac appeared and tagged Julian. The Mac handed Debbie 3 tagging pens and left. What was that all about? Julian asked. Your uniforms and IDs are in the mission room. Dr. Jennifer Lane will accompany you. She will meet you at the mission room. Reek said. Anything else? Arlene, are you ready? Can we go now? Debbie asked and Reek nodded. Tony beamed them to the mission room where they found Dr. Lane. Hello girls. Lieutenant Singer. I'm Dr. Lane, but I would prefer that you just call me Jen. Your uniforms and IDs are on the desk. Julian was quiet and wanted to know what just happened. I get to wear a uniform too? Arlene asked. Dr. Lane gestured Arlene to follow her to one of the vacant officer quarters. We have to go undercover. Debbie told Arlene. They noticed Dr. Lane was also wearing an Air Force uniform. Back at the mission room. Our contact is Lieutenant General Elliot. Retired, formerly of the Air Force. He is part of Timmy's team in Planet Portland and he was the person who requested for us when he found out from a briefing Harold gave them. Other than General Elliot, none of his people should know. We will beam straight to his office and he will help us around the place. Julian, are you okay? You seem so quiet. I am still trying to make sense out of everything so far. Julian said. Just go with the flow and play it by ear. Arlene told him. General Elliot has people in his office. The meeting will last at least 30 minutes. Tony said. That's all good, I haven't eaten breakfast or even lunch yet. Debbie said. Meto. Julian, have you eaten already? Arlene asked. Come on, let's all go to the mess hall. Jen told them. Entering mess hall, they reverted to the corporal world except for Julian. Julian, just tell me what you like so I can get it for you. Arlene said. When they were seated they turned the food crimson invisible and the food is now available to Julian. They started to eat and Julian had a hard time believing that he could now eat. He took a small piece of steak. "Wow, that is really good," Julian said. "Julian, why do you think you have not moved on? What is it that you think is preventing you from moving on?" Dr. Lane asked. "I believe it's my sense of duty. That I have not given enough for the life I lost. For most of the guys like those we picked up and died in the heli, their sense of duty is like they never wanted to leave the battle or their comrades. So you could say it's different for the guys but it's the same sense of duty that we had to do something but weren't able to. Don't worry Julian, we have the solution for that already." "How many ghosts are in the museum?" Debbie asked. "Not a lot. Maybe 10 at the most. Sometimes, there are ghosts hanging around and talking to the locals or resident ghosts. Most of the transient ghosts are Air Force, a few Navy and Army. We could hang around late at night so we don't have to bother with the living. Just get them around us, we tag them and move them here. I think the General wants to accompany us around," Dr. Lane said. When they were done eating, they beamed themselves to General Elliot's office and hung around until everybody left. When they were alone with Elliot, they turned visible. Elliot saw them and stood up to greet them. "Hello ladies. I'm General Elliot, you must be Debbie, Arlene and Dr. Lane." They shook hands and sat down. "Jeannie, I do not want to be disturbed in the next 2 hours. No calls, nothing. Tell everybody I am not here." He talked over the intercom. Dr. Lane started, "We will turn crimson invisible and look for all your ghosts in your facility. This is Lieutenant Julian Singer, he's a helicopter pilot in Vietnam," Dr. Lane said. Elliot shook his hands. "Good to see you son. I've read about you and most of the men purportedly haunting the museum." Debbie gave the tagging pens to Dr. Lane and Arlene. "The facility is very large and I think we should split up to look for the ghosts," Elliot said. "No sir, we can just go to the back of the warehouse where they always hang around. Lead the way son." They walked through the door and into the hallway. Walking through something felt a slight resistance. "Debbie, how come you and Dr. Lane float and not walk like us?" Arlene asked. "Training and practice. That is so cool. You have to train us ghosts to do that," Julian said. After a few minutes they reached the warehouse in the other building. They walked to the rear of the building. There they saw 11 ghosts, for ghosts were playing cards. The ghosts did not mind them except for Julian. One of the ghosts nodded at him. "Hi guys, this is General Elliot, Debbie, Arlene, and Dr. Lane," Julian said, but nobody seemed to be listening. Elliot moved nearer and said, "Hi guys, I'm General Elliot. I am glad to finally meet all of you." He took hold of the hand of one of the ghosts and shook it. Then Debbie, Arlene and Dr. Lane moved quickly to tag them. Then they each shook hands with the ghosts. One of the ghosts tried to salute and Elliot told him not to. The ghosts were dumbfounded. They all remained quiet though as Julian introduced each of them. "And you two are?" Julian asked the 2 new members of the group. "Captain Jason Ramos and this is Lieutenant Dwayne Perkins," Jason said as he shook hands with Julian. The ghosts were all wearing their uniforms and they looked tidy and not dirty at all. "Which one of you guys have been moving things around the place?" Dr. Lane asked. "It's a training activity we do to let people know we exist. It's actually very hard to do and I think it takes a lot of time to master to be able to make a real thing move. But Lieutenant Trip McGee is the most experienced. He's also the oldest ghost from the Korean War," Julian explained. "While I like your presence here more so now that I know you, I would enjoy it even more but there are missions that the President has given this group and I hope you guys can help out," Elliot said. "What can we do? We're dead, ghosts," Jason exclaimed. "Precisely. Look guys, our job is to help you guys move on with your dead life. Normally, the reason why you remain as ghosts is because your sense of duty, and the definition is as wide as the ocean, prevents you from moving on to the real afterlife. We will attempt to provide some solution to your problem and have been successful in a large number of cases with regular civilian ghosts. Right now we will all move to our ship, have you wear some new clothes and let you eat your heart out in our mess hall," Dr. Lane said. "General, would you like to go now?" Debbie asked Elliot. Elliot nodded, "Let's go." They found themselves in the mission room of the Tesla. "Have a seat gentlemen," Dr. Lane told the ghosts. As soon as they were seated they saw a bag of uniform appear beside them. Dr. Lane nodded to Debbie. Debbie stood in front of the ghosts. "Welcome to the Tesla. That's the name of this ship. There are a lot of things you would be seeing and we normally request that you be patient and understanding and just let things unfold and be explained to you along the way. Some of you would think, doubt and not believe, as I said be patient. You are the second group of dead military we have encountered. The first group was a Delta Force squad shot down more than 5 years ago under the command of Colonel Riker. The president gave his group a new mission. Now he would probably give you your own mission. She looked at Elliot. I want you all to take those uniforms and wear them. If the shoes do not fit, tell us. We will leave this room and wait for you at the hallway. Then we will proceed to the mess hall. Debbie and Arlene proceeded to the mess hall. They arranged 3 long tables near the floor-to-ceiling window. Earlier, they telepathically informed the kitchen staff of their guests and come out with the best meal for the heroes. As soon as they finished rearranging the tables and chairs, the kitchen staff set up the plates and utensils, glasses and napkins. Then they brought the food out. Steak, as usual, fried chicken, pasta, wines, brandy, soup, salads, veggies and ice cream. Then they turned the table crimson invisible. When the ghosts arrived, they were already wearing the Armada blues. General Elliot stood at one end of the table while Dr. Lane sat at the other. Arlene stood at one side facing the window while Debbie stood at the other side. The men stood behind the seats between the 4. Elliot was still standing and said, "Please have a seat." He waited for a moment. "Guys, your commander-in-chief wanted me to let you know that he is very proud of you and wants to meet all of you after you are done here. It will be a quick one, but he intends to give you your mission as ghosts. I want you all to know that this ship, appreciates the work you have done and the life you gave up for your country, and we would do our best to help you move on." "We're in a spaceship?" Jason asked. "Yes, and we are parked between Earth and Mars but at a different tangent." Debbie explained. "You will also notice there are aliens in this ship. Those are our brothers in arms. We fight together and treat them like you would consider your co-pilot." Dr. Lane said. "I would suggest you start eating. I know you have not tasted food for a long time. This is wine and this is brandy. That round thing is ice cream." Arlene said. "After our meeting with the president, you would return here and Dr. Lane will process you, like check your physicals, as ghosts of course. Then you will undergo a 2-week training on the ways of the Armada under General Castro." Elliot explained. "This ice cream is to die for," Julian said, and the ghosts laughed. He did not intend to eat but intended to drink wine. "I have not had steak since my wife had a barbecue for me before I left. But this steak is so soft and tasty. Incredible," Jason said. Dr. Lane and General Elliot were quiet. Arlene and Debbie were more livid, joking around with the men. After more than half an hour, they were winding down. Most of them had either a wine or brandy glass in hand. "We are waiting for our cue from Daisy. She told me the president will see us in 3 minutes. Why don't we all stand by the window so you can see Earth and Mars from here?" They all stood and walked over. They were quiet now. Elliot said. Tony appeared. "It's time, General Elliot." Elliot nodded. The group was beamed into the Oval Office. Albert, Harold and Mayers were there to meet the group. They turned crimson invisible. Elliot did the introduction. "Men, this is President Albert Baker, Defense Secretary Harold Hicks, and Armed Forces Chief of Staff Hans Mayer." He went on to introduce the men. The men gave a crisp salute. Albert went over to shake their hands. Harold and Mayer followed his cue. "I am honored to meet our fallen heroes. We have talked about your group a few minutes ago and we decided that your initial mission is to go around the country and bring back to the fold all military dead heroes such as yourselves. Think of it like an evac of fallen heroes and bringing them back home. Debbie will teach you the basics. You would have a 2-week training on how the Armada does its work so you would know your place around. The training will be under General Castro. Since you are the most senior officer, Jason, you will head this group. Then you will operate under Dr. Reek, identify all the military ghosts and bring them home. We will try our best to help you move on and bring peace to your souls." Albert said. "It will take a little time, but as ghosts I am sure you won't mind." Harold said, and the men laughed. "Please tell us whatever it is you need. If you want to visit your families, we can help with that. But after the training program, we would aspire to provide you with anything a ghost would need, but you have to tell us what you need. Dr. Lane will be around to help you. And by the way, you will be paid for your duties based on a special pay grade for ghost operatives, and this money will be sent to your family or intended beneficiaries," Mayer said. Albert again went around shaking their hands and they realized their time is up. Each of them saluted. They promptly beamed back to the Tesla. "I will miss the ghosts in our museum. Please try to visit me at my office if you find the time," Elliot said. Elliot also shook their hands and beamed back to the museum. Tony showed them to their quarters where they found several sets of clothes and uniforms and told them they have an hour to freshen up or rest. They looked around and found their units well stocked with personal care items. Some of them took time to take a bath, something they have not done for a long time. After an hour they moved back to the mission room. The room suddenly smelled fresh, and I presume now you all had your first bath since you died. Now you don't smell dead at all," Debbie said, and the men laughed. We have received approval to make you guys telepathic. This will allow you to talk to us and among yourselves telepathically. Then we will also provide you with implants so you can hear and communicate with our ships or to anyone over longer distances. Dr. Lane continued. Debbie explained the process to the men so they would not be too tense. She explained that she had the implant several years ago and it's now part of her body. We have a cornea implant that allows people to see what you see, but we have not tried it on ghosts. It's pretty cool since it allows you to see in the dark, like night vision, and allows you to focus on an object from a distance. Our Marines and all ground troops have them. You will be the ghosts' guinea pigs. Don't worry, you won't die of infection. They all laughed. One of the men raised his hand and stood. Lieutenant Lewis, sir, I was wondering, have you found any ghost ladies around? The men laughed. First of all, I am not a sir, I am also a first lieutenant like you. And to answer your question, that is your mission. Shall we go now? Debbie asked and Dr. Lane nodded. They found themselves in the belly of the Crimson. 2 Trunties walked to each of them and held their hands. They all became quiet. Dr. Lane, I think the guys need a techie who will help them with the search. Somebody to do the background intel and coordinate their work. Debbie said. I agree, and I have a person in mind. A second lieutenant from your academy. She lost her dad in an accident and she has been searching for him for more than 3 years and never found him. I think she would be very interested in the job. Tony, can you search for Second Lieutenant Jessica Berman? Tell her to beam over if she is available. Where will they work? Arlene asked. I will appropriate one of the offices here in the ship for their group. Dr. Lane said. One of the Trunties is telling me that Captain Jason's family is telekinetic. His wife's family also has a history of telekinesis. This is incredible to the Crinsons and Trunties since this is the first time they have encountered anything like this, which is saying a lot. Debbie said. Second Lieutenant Berman appeared. Sir, you called for me, she addressed Debbie. Dr. Lane interjected, I called for you. Lieutenant, these men are ghosts. Berman was shocked. Jessica was a petite lady at 5'3", with a round smiling face, a nice smile actually. She looked slightly thin and her muscular body was not very obvious in her crisp uniform. Except for the fire-red hair, she looked like your regular white graduate student. The president tasked them to scour the planet for ghosts and bring them home. Like a search and rescue mission. But they need somebody who will provide them the intel, coordination, and support while they work in the field. Dr. Lane told me you have some experience in this line of work searching for your father. Debbie explained. Yes, sir, I do. But I have not found him yet. Berman said. Maybe with these guys, you might succeed. What are you doing right now? Dr. Lane asked. I'm assigned with the technical repair crew of General Cook. Let me talk to him. Dr. Lane said, and she kept quiet for a while. Jessica, this is Arlene. Our division is called Phantom Tide and our job is to help ghosts move on. Arlene and her mom can see ghosts, so we recruited her and now she works with our group. These are the second set of military dead people we have brought into the fold. The first group was assigned by the president to go through the Dimension Gateway, while this group was assigned to look for ghosts of dead military personnel. Debbie said. Dr. Lane faced Berman. General Cook said okay, and he would do anything to help our fallen heroes. It would be my honor to work with your group, Dr. Lane. Call me Jess or Jessie. By the way, Jessie, how do you know your dad is still a ghost? Arlene asked. I don't. Sometimes I dream about him and sometimes I feel him. Jessica said. Where? Debbie asked. At my mom's house. Arlene held her hand. Let's go to your mom's house. I guess you guys can go ahead. After this, I would bring them for their physical and psychological testing. I don't think you would be needed there. Dr. Lane said. Tony beamed them in front of a house in a town called Ashland in Oregon. Jessica, Debbie, and Arlene were in their physical form. The house was empty and locked. Tony beamed them inside into the kitchen area. They walked from the kitchen to the dining room. Then Jessica showed them to the family room. There Arlene saw Jessica's dad reading a book. Arlene told the 2 girls that Jessica's dad is sitting on the sofa reading a book. They turned Crimson invisible. Hello, Daddy. Jessica said softly. She ran and sat beside the man and embraced him. Mr. Berman was still dumbstruck as Jessica kissed him several times in the cheek. Hello, dear. How is this possible? Mr. Berman asked. Daddy, this is Debbie and Arlene. I work with them and Arlene can see ghosts. Mr. Berman stood and extended his hand. Arlene and Debbie each shook his hand. Jessica was now embracing him from behind. I miss this embrace, Jessie, I missed you so much. May I ask Mr. Berman why you have not moved on and remained as a ghost in this world? Debbie asked. I have to tell my wife something that I forgot before I died. I also felt that I have not properly said goodbye to my 2 kids. Where is Mom and Ronnie, by the way? Jessica asked. They will be coming home from work in a few minutes. I have been looking for you for the past 3 years. Where were you and how did you die? My car fell in a ravine in a Blue Mountain road at the Oregon side that was made slippery because of some water flow from a crease on the side of the mountain. Debbie presented a hologram of the mountain. Can you tell us where? Debbie asked. Mr. Berman looked at the hologram. It's on this side. Debbie told Tony, who turned the hologram around. Here along this road, can you show it closer? Here on this road. My car fell off this bend into this ravine. Jessica told Tony to tag her dad and beam them to the area. They found themselves beside a car wreck, and inside the car Jessica could see the remains of her dad. She embraced her dad and cried, seeing the ravaged body, or what's left of it. The car was well hidden by very large trees and now by overgrown bushes. Let's go to the local police station and tell them to get over here and get the car out so your dad would have a proper burial. Debbie suggested. That can wait. It is not a priority to me at the moment. What I would like to do is to talk to your mom and tell her something. Tony beamed them back home. That was amazing, honey. How did you do that? Dad, it's a long story, but we can make Mom and Ron see you and talk to you like you're a regular living person. We can have dinner together. Debbie, Arlene, can you have dinner with us? We'd love to, Jesse, but we have a prior engagement. We can leave now so you and your dad can catch up. I will see you tomorrow at Arlene's office. Just ask the Crinson yourself for whatever it is you need, or ask Tony. Jessica embraced Debbie, then Arlene. You guys have made my dream come true. Thank you. And don't worry about me, I have Tony. Debbie and Arlene embraced Mr. Berman and they beamed back to the Tesla. There, Tony told them the group will be at Andrew's house in 30 minutes for the second round of shopping. You were right, Debbie, we do get a second serving. This time don't hold back. You only bought 3 dozen items last night. You could do more. Remember, free does not come every day. I would like to change into some serious shopping wear. Debbie nodded in agreement and, me too. Let us go. The next day at Anna's house. Debbie beamed down and was shocked at the number of ghosts around the house. The whole street was full of ghosts. She saw Rick, Jamie and Anna talking by the front stairs of the house. There were now 4 tables and each table had 4 lines of ghosts being processed. Hi Debbie, how did your shopping go? Rick asked. Hi Dr. Rick. I bought you something, this is for you. And Anna, this is for you. Rick quickly opened his bag. What, a Rolex? Rick exclaimed. Now Anna suddenly became eager to open her bag. I get a Rolex too. Arlene gave me this gold necklace and it looks so expensive. You are so thoughtful, Debbie. She showed Debbie the gold necklace. Who's the other bag for? Rick asked. There she is. Jessie, come. When Jessica got nearer, this is for you, Jess. Debbie smiled. It's probably a Rolex. Arlene was suddenly beside her mom and looking at her watch. We bought that in Switzerland. Arlene told her mom. It is a Rolex. Thank you. What did I do to deserve this? Jessica asked. Arlene and Debbie did not answer. How was the dinner last night? Arlene asked. Well, it was very nice. Dad was really happy, and my mom and my brother were really shocked. Anyway, my dad moved on after a few hours. My family was so happy. It did open up the subject of moving to Planet Los Angeles again, and maybe in a year, they both would move in with me. I am so happy for you, Jessie. Debbie said. Jamie appeared, the building is ready.